The rain hammered the church roof like 1,000 unspoken regrets, drowning out the organ's mournful hymn as John gripped the podium's edge, his knuckles whitening against the polished oak. "Joshua wasn't just my best friend," he said, his voice cracking like thunder in the stunned silence, the words he'd buried for years clawing their way out. "He was the love of my life, the one who saw me when no one else did, and I never told him." The congregation froze, a collective gasp rippling through the pews like wind through Ohio cornfields. Old ladies clutched their pearls. John's father, stone-faced in the front row, shifted as if punched in the gut. But John didn't stop. Couldn't stop now that the dam had broken. Joshua's casket gleamed under the stained glass light, a cruel sentinel to the secrets they'd shared in stolen moments. And as John's tears hit the eulogy page, blurring the ink, he felt the weight of a lifetime lift, even as the room threatened to swallow him whole. It was the kind of small-town funeral where everyone knew your sins before you confessed them. Maplewood, Ohio, population 4,200, where the diner on Main Street served pie with every apology and the high school football field still echoed with Friday night ghosts. John Harlan, 28, had always been the quiet Harlan boy, the one who fixed engines at his dad's garage without a word of complaint, who nodded through family dinners while his brothers boasted about their wives and kids. Steady as a heartbeat, his mom used to say, before the cancer took her 5 years back. But steady hid storms. And Joshua Ellis? He was the lightning. They'd met at 16, in the sticky heat of a county fair, where the air smelled of fried dough and teenage rebellion. John was there with his cousin, nursing a root beer and avoiding the Ferris wheel's chaotic spin, when Joshua crashed into him, literally. A runaway bumper car, piloted by a laughing kid with freckles and eyes like summer storms, veered off course and clipped John's boot. "Shit. Sorry. Man," Joshua had yelped, vaulting out with the grace of someone born to move through the world unapologetically. He was all limbs and easy smiles, his flannel shirt untucked over jeans frayed at the knees, a rebel flag patch sewn ironically on the sleeve because, as he'd later explain, "Irony's my middle name, Joshua Irony Ellis." John, flustered and unused to being noticed, mumbled, "No harm," but Joshua wasn't the type to let collisions fade. He bought John a corn dog as penance, then dragged him onto the tilt-a-whirl, where the world blurred into lights and screams, and for the first time, John laughed, really laughed, until his sides ached. By midnight, they were sprawled on the fairground grass, sharing a pilfered six-pack under the stars, talking about everything and nothing. How John's dad expected him to take over the garage like it was destiny. How Joshua's folks had split when he was 10, leaving him shuttling between a trailer park mom and a city slicker dad in Cleveland who sent checks but no cards. That night birthed a friendship forged in late-night drives down Route 23. Windows down, radio blasting Springsteen as they chased fireflies or just the horizon. Joshua was the spark, charismatic, quick with a joke that could defuse a bomb. The kid who organized bonfires on the riverbank where half the town showed up, beers in hand, stories flowing freer than the water. John was the anchor, the one who remembered birthdays with mixtapes burned on his ancient PC, who patched Joshua up after a bar fight with the finesse of a surgeon. They were yin and yang, Joshua, the golden boy with dreams of escaping to LA for screenwriting gigs. John, rooted deep in Maplewood soil, content, or so he told himself, to tinker with carburetors and nurse quiet crushes he never named. But love doesn't announce itself politely. Creeps in like fog off Lake Erie, thick and disorienting. For John, it started small. The way Joshua's laugh lit up truck stop diners at 2 a.m., Or how he'd sling an arm around John's shoulders after a bad day, the casual touch lingering just a beat too long. By 20, when they were sharing a rundown apartment above the garage, rent split 60/40ths because Joshua's barista gigs at the Daily Grind were sporadic. They were inseparable. Mornings meant coffee brewed black, Joshua sketching scripts on napkins while John tuned the radio to NPR for the weather report. Nights blurred into video game marathons or hikes in the Hocking Hills, where they'd pitch a tent and wake to deer rustling in the underbrush. One autumn evening, leaves crunching like brittle memories underfoot, they sat by a campfire, embers popping like questions neither dared ask. Joshua had just bombed an audition tape for a community theater play, some indie flick about lost boys in the Rust Belt, and he was uncharacteristically quiet, nursing a whiskey from his dad's old flask. "You ever feel like you're running from yourself, Johnny?" he asked, voice low against the cricket chorus. John, poking the fire with a stick, felt his heart stutter. "Every damn day," he admitted, the words tasting like ash. Joshua turned, firelight carving shadows across his face, and for a moment, the world narrowed to the space between them, 2 inches, maybe 3. Then Joshua leaned in, lips brushing John's in a kiss that was tentative, electric, tasting of smoke and possibility. It wasn't fireworks. It was a slow burn, the kind that reshapes landscapes. They pulled back, eyes wide, breaths mingling in the chill air. "Was that?" Joshua whispered, half laugh, half prayer. John nodded, throat tight. "Yeah. That." From there, it unfolded like a secret roadmap. Stolen kisses in the garage after closing, hands exploring under flannel sheets in the dead of night, whispers of "I got you" when doubts crept in. Joshua called it their underground railroad, a path to freedom they built in shadows, away from prying eyes. Maplewood wasn't hostile, not overtly. The pride flag fluttered outside the library come June, and the diner hosted drag bingo on Thursdays. But small towns have long memories. And the Harlans? They were Bible Belt holdouts. John's dad quoting Leviticus over pot roast like it was gospel truth. John loved Joshua with a ferocity that scared him. Loved the freckles dusting his nose like constellations, the way he'd hum show tunes while scrubbing dishes, the dreams he chased even when they bruised him. Joshua loved back, fierce and unfiltered, but there was a restlessness in him, a pull toward bigger lights. LA's calling, Johnny, he'd say during their post-love haze, fingers tracing John's collarbone. But I'll drag you with me. Beach house. Scripts selling like hotcakes. John would smile, bury the fear that Joshua's wings were made for solo flights. They were 25 when the first crack appeared. Joshua landed a gig waitering at a Cleveland theater, crashing with his dad on weekends. The distance stretched calls to texts, texts to silences. "Just the grind," Joshua texted once, after 2 days radio silent. John stared at the screen in their empty apartment, the bed too big, the silence deafening. Betrayal came not with a bang, but a whisper. A phone left unlocked on the kitchen counter, buzzing with a name John didn't know. Ricky. Messages scrolled like indictments. Late-night hookups after shows. "Miss you already" emojis from a guy in artsy glasses. John's stomach plummeted, the room spinning as he pieced it together. Joshua, unraveling under the city's temptations, seeking solace in strangers' arms because it's not cheating if we're not labeled, right? The fight that followed was their first real one. Words flung like grenades in the dim light of the garage. "You're pulling away," John shouted, wrenching a socket from the toolbox, the clang echoing like judgment. Joshua paced, Wild-eyed. I'm drowning here. John. Maplewood's a cage, you know that. I need space to breathe. Space became a chasm. Joshua moved out, couch surfing in Cleveland. Their texts a minefield of, I love you but. John threw himself into work. Grease under his nails a poor substitute for touch. Nights blurring into whiskey shots at the VFW hall. His brothers noticed, slapping his back with plenty of fish platitudes. But John swallowed the truth like barbed wire. He saw Joshua once, months later, at a mutual friend's wedding, across the barn dance floor, Joshua twirling a bridesmaid, his laugh forced, eyes haunted. John turned away, the ache a living thing. Then the call came, shattering the fragile peace. Joshua, car wreck on I-71, hydroplaning in a storm, gone at 27. He asked for you, the nurse said, voice tinny over the line. Last words, tell John I'm sorry. Back in the church, John's voice trembled as he finished the eulogy, the rain easing to a drizzle outside. Josh taught me to speak up, even when it hurts. He was my heart, my everything. And if there's a heaven, I hope he's writing our story up there, with a happy ending. He stepped down, legs jelly, as the organ swelled into amazing grace. His father rose, face ashen, pulling him into a hug that smelled of aftershave and unspoken apologies. Son, he murmured, voice rough, we'll talk. Family talks. The mourners filed out, some whispering, others nodding with quiet understanding, Maplewood's way of processing the uncharted. In the days after the funeral, Maplewood wrapped around John like a worn quilt, neighbors dropping casseroles at the garage door, his sister-in-law, Becca, organizing a cleanup crew for the apartment that still echoed with Joshua's ghost. But grief isn't polite, it gnaws. John found himself driving Route 23 at dawn, the truck's headlights cutting fog like unanswered questions, pulling over at their old bonfire spot by the river. The ground was sodden, fire pit overgrown with weeds, but he sat there anyway, flask in hand, Joshua's, engraved with irony lives. You bastard, he whispered to the empty air, tears hot on his cheeks. Why'd you leave me with this? The family reckoning hit like a nor'easter. Dinner at his dad's that Sunday, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the Harlan ritual, turned tense when Uncle Ray cracked a beer and said, loud enough for the room, heard your speech, Johnny. Bold move. But, you know, the Bible says, Dad cut him off with a glare sharp as a socket wrench. Not tonight, Ray. John pushed peas around his plate, the clink of silverware deafening. His brothers, Tom and Mike, exchanged looks. Tom, the eldest, clearing his throat. Look, we ain't judging. But Dad's right, family first. You too. It was always intense, intense. The word landed like a dodge, erasing years of tangled sheets and whispered vows. Later, alone with Dad in the garage, beer cans sweating on the workbench, the old man finally spoke. Harlan Sr., 62, hands scarred from decades of engines, stared at a half-tuned Ford like it held answers. Your ma, God rest her, always said you were the sensitive one. Thought it was poetry or some shit. Not this. He gestured vaguely, eyes avoiding John's. I pushed you boys to be men strong, straight shooting. Leviticus, Proverbs, it's how I was raised. John felt the old rage bubble, but grief softened it. Dad, Josh wasn't a phase. He was home. And I lost him anyway. Silence stretched, broken only by crickets outside. Then, haltingly, Dad said, "Saw you two at the fair. Kids. Laughing like fools. Made me jealous. Ain't laughed like that since your ma." It wasn't absolution, but it was a crack in the armor. A Harlan first. Flashbacks haunted John like unedited reels. Their first real date, not a date, they'd insisted, just bros hanging, was a road trip to Cuyahoga Valley. Autumn 2010. Leaves ablaze in reds and golds. Joshua drove his beat-up Chevy. Stick shift grinding as they blasted the National. Windows down despite the chill. They hiked Brandywine Falls, mist rising like spirits, and at the trail's end, Joshua pulled John close against a boulder, kissing him slow and deep, the world fading to river rush and heartbeat. "This is us," Joshua murmured, forehead to John's. No labels, no limits. Back home, they christened the apartment with takeout tie and a futon that sagged under their weight. Laughter turning to gasps, bodies mapping new territories. Joshua was playful, teasing, nipping John's ear, whispering, "You're mine, grease monkey," but vulnerable too, confessing fears over midnight cereal, abandonment issues from his folks' split, the terror of never measuring up. By 22, they were a unit, navigating the closet's tight confines with coded texts. "Pick up milk," meaning "come over," doors unlocked. Joshua's scripts piled up, tales of queer outlaws in Heartland hideouts, thinly veiled autobiographies he shopped to Cleveland lit agents. John proofread them, red pen gentle, heart swelling at the heroes who mirrored them. Resilient, flawed, loving fiercely. "You're my muse," Joshua teased, but his eyes held truth. Conflict simmered early, Joshua's itch for escape clashing with John's rootedness. "Maplewood's killing me," he'd vent after a shift, steam from the diner clinging to his hair. "Everyone knows your business, Mrs. Hargrove asked if we're roommates with benefits last week." John laughed it off, but inside, dread coiled. He pictured Joshua in L.A., palm trees and spotlights, fading into a postcard signature. The betrayal deepened in layers. After the Cleveland move, Joshua's visits dwindled, excuses piling like snowdrifts. Rehearsal ran late. Dad's sick. John drove up once, unannounced, heart in his throat, only to find Joshua at a dive bar, arm around Ricky, a lithe actor with a poet's drawl. Not kissing, but close, too close. John slipped out before spotted, the drive home a blur of tears and tail lights. Confrontation via phone, voices raw. "It's nothing, Johnny," stress relief. "You and me, we're real." "Real?" John hurled the word back like a curse. "Real doesn't ghost for days. Real fights for it." Joshua sobbed, promises tumbling. "I'll quit the scene, come home," but actions lagged. John forgave, because what else? Love like theirs was a lifeline in the Rust Belt dark. Then the accident. Joshua, texting while driving in that storm, veering into a semi. The cops' report cited distraction. John read it like a suicide note. At the hospital vigil, Joshua's mom, bleached hair, smoker's rasp, hugged John fierce. "He talked about you non-stop, huh? Said you were his anchor." Ricky showed up once, awkward in khakis, mumbling condolences before vanishing. John's family circled wagons post-funeral, Becca dragging him to grief group at the community center, circle of folding chairs, coffee urn hissing like therapy. "Share when ready," the facilitator urged. John did, haltingly. The love, The loss. The lies. Nods rippled. A burly trucker admitted losing his partner to AIDS in '92. Still raw. Human connection. Fragile as spider silk. Winter gripped Maplewood. Snow blanketing the garage like amnesia. John tinkered with a '67 Mustang. Radio tuned to classic rock. Joshua's taste. When Dad wandered in, toolbox in hand. "Let me help," he grunted. No preamble. They worked side by side. Silent at first. Then stories. Dad's own youth. A forbidden crush on a farmhand quashed by church fire and brimstone. Buried it deep. Regrets heavier than rust. John paused. Wrench mid-turn. "You regret not speaking?" Dad nodded, wiping grease. "Every day." "Don't you bury yours, son." It was the closest to "I love you" Harlan men got, actions over words. Spring thawed the ground, and with it, John's resolve. He packed Joshua's scripts into a box, drove to Cleveland, pitching one to an agent over cold coffee. "It's raw," the woman said, eyes lighting. Heartland queer love timely. Back home, John started writing his own. Not fiction, but truth, their story, unvarnished. Bonfires resumed, friends gathering, toasting Joshua with esmores and stories. One night, under stars sharp as memory, Tom clapped John's shoulder. "Proud of you, bro." For speaking, the family shifted. Dinners now included Becca's brother, out and proud, normalizing the new normal. Yet peace was a fickle guest. Nightmares plagued John, Joshua's Chevy crumpling, his laugh echoing from wreckage. He'd wake sweat-soaked, reaching for empty sheets, the apartment a museum of ghosts. Joshua's flannel on the hook, coffee mug chipped from a clumsy morning rush. To cope, John volunteered at the youth center, coaching soccer for Maplewood's ragtag teens, kids with dreams bigger than the town, questions sharper than cleats. There was Eli, 16, gangly with a stutter, confiding post-practice. "Coach, I think I like boys." "That make me broken." John's heart clenched, echo of his own unspoken youth. "Nah, kid. Makes you brave. Just find your people." Eli's grin, tentative sunbreak, healed something jagged in John. Joshua's shadow loomed in echoes. His mom called weekly, voice thick with Valium and loss. Found his journal. Pages about you. John's eyes like home fires. "Wish I'd known." She mailed it, leather-bound, entries a time capsule. Early crushes on John sketched in margins. Later doubts scrawled in frenzy. "City's a beast. Devours the quiet parts of me. Miss my anchor." The betrayal pages gutted him. Ricky's easy, no stakes. But John's the storm I crave. John burned them in the fire pit. Ashes swirling like absolution. Whispering, "Forgiven, you wanderer." Summer swelled, humid and insistent, bringing the county fair, same midway lights, same cotton candy haze. John went alone, ticket clutched like talisman, riding the tilt-a-whirl solo, world spinning until nausea matched his ache. There, amid the chaos, he spotted her. Lena, Joshua's ex-sister-in-law from his mom's side, manning a booth with handmade soaps. "Johnny," she called, pulling him into a hug scented with lavender. Over funnel cake, she spilled, "Josh wrote me before. Everything. Said if he didn't make it, tell you he was scared of loving too big, of dragging you down." Tears pricked. John nodded. The fair's din a merciful buffer. Back at work, the garage hummed. customers trickling in for oil changes, small talk veering personal. Heard about your friend, old mister, Wilkins said, paying for a brake job. Tragic. But that speech, gutsy. Reminds me of my boy, lost to the war, but loved fierce. Maplewood's humanism surfaced in these fissures. Not parades, but quiet nods, potlucks where stories bridged divides. John's dad even joined a PFLAG meeting, begrudging at first, then hooked, returning with pamphlets and a softened gaze. Turns out, love's love. He muttered over breakfast, passing the bacon. The climax brewed in autumn's amber glow, leaves falling like confetti for the undone. John got the call from the agent. Joshua's script, Rust Heart, optioned for indie film, low budget, Sundance dreams. Your pitch sealed it, she said. Elation warred with sorrow. John drove to the river, journal in tow, reading aloud Joshua's words to the current. We made this, he said, voice steady. But fate twisted. Ricky resurfaced. Email out of nowhere. Heard about the script. Josh mentioned you. Can we talk? Closure. John met him at a Cleveland cafe. Neutral ground. Ricky older. Lines etched from regret. Nursing black coffee. I was the rebound, Ricky admitted. Eyes down. He talked about you nonstop, your steadiness, how you grounded him. I was the distraction from his fears. Betrayal reframed. Not malice, but Joshua's unraveling. The city's grind amplifying insecurities. He died loving you, Ricky finished, voice breaking. Wished he'd fought harder. John left lighter, the chasm bridged by truth. Homeward. Storm clouds gathered, literal tempest, thunder rumbling like unresolved chords. He pulled over at their spot, rain lashing the truck, and wept, not just for loss, but release. Lightning cracked, illuminating the river's rush, and in that flash, he saw them, 18, laughing under stars, invincible. I love you, John said to the empty cab, the words a vow to carry forward. Winter's hush brought transformation. John sold the apartment, moved into a cottage on the town's edge, porch swing creaking, wildflowers nodding in breeze. He finished his memoir, Silent No More, self-published with a local press, pages raw with their saga, friendship's spark, love's blaze, betrayal's chill, grief's forge. Launch night at the library. 50 souls crammed in, fairy lights strung like hope, Dad in the front row, eyes misty as John read the dedication. To Joshua, who taught me voice, Q&A flowed, questions on faith, family, forgiveness. A teen in the back, voice quavering, asked, how do you heal? John paused, smile soft. You don't. You grow around it, like trees after fire. Spring 2026 bloomed defiant. The film premiered at a Cleveland fest. John invited, walking the carpet in Joshua's old jacket, heart pounding. Credits rolled, based on a story by Joshua Ellis, shaped by John Harlan. Standing ovation, tears communal. Backstage, producer clapped his back. This is humanist gold, love that endures. John nodded, whispering to the empty air. We did it. Wanderer. Maplewood evolved too. Pride float at the fair. Rainbow flags on lampposts. John's family? Dinners now featured toasts. To love. All kinds. Dad even fixed Eli's bike. Gruff advice laced with be true. Kid. Eli thrived. Out and proud. crediting Coach John. One dawn, John hiked Hocking Hills, journal tucked under arm, reaching their boulder. Mist clung, birdsong a serenade. He sat, tracing initials carved years back, J and J, intertwined. "Miss you," he said, voice clear. "But I'm okay. We're okay." Sun-pierced clouds, gilding the falls a benediction. Love, he'd learned, wasn't possession. It was echo, rippling outward, humanizing the broken. Years later, John mentored writers, his cottage a haven for heartland dreamers. Joshua's script won accolades. John's book inspired a local theater troupe. Betrayal faded to footnote, conflict to catalyst. In quiet moments, he'd feel it, a brush of wind, a laugh on the breeze. Joshua, ever the spark, illuminating the path. And John, no longer silent. He spoke for them both. But endings aren't neat. They're vines, twisting back on themselves. 2 years post-funeral, John found love again. Not a thunderclap, but a gentle rain. Started at the youth center. Alex, 26, the new art therapist, with paint-flecked jeans and a smile that crinkled his hazel eyes. Alex was city transplant Chicago roots, fleeing corporate grind for small-town soul-searching. They bonded over murals. Alex's brushstrokes bold where John's were precise, conversations drifting from Klimt to Springsteen under fluorescent hum. "You're healing others," Alex said one evening, packing supplies. "But who heals you?" John hesitated, the question a key in old locks. Trying. One day at a time. Their first date was unassuming. Picnic at the river, BLTs and craft IPAs, sunset painting the water gold. No rush, kisses tentative, like testing thawed ice. Alex knew Joshua's story, respected the ghosts without jealousy. "He sounds like he lit you up," he said, hand warm in John's. "I want to add to that fire, not douse it." Vulnerability scared John, betrayal's scar tissue tender. But Alex was patient, a counterpoint to Joshua's storm. Steady hikes, shared cookouts, quiet nights debating film scripts over popcorn. John's family vetted him gruffly, Dad sizing him up over burgers. "Treat him right, or you'll answer to me." Alex grinned, unfazed. "Yes, sir." He's worth it. Conflict resurfaced in ripples. When Rust Heart hit streaming, reviews gushed, poignant queer odyssey. But trolls swarmed online, slinging slurs at the agenda. John woke to hate mail, the old Harlan instinct to retreat surging. Alex found him at dawn, truck idling outside the cottage. "Drive," Alex said, sliding in. They ended up at Lake Erie, waves lapping like confessions. "This is them talking," John vented, hurling stones into foam. "Maplewood's progress fragile." Alex pulled him close, salt air sharp. "Then we fight smarter. Your voice started this. Ours sustains it." They did. John penning op-eds for the local rag. Alex organizing ally workshops. Strength in tandem. Betrayal's lesson. Love thrives in solidarity. Climax crested that summer. Fair weekend redux. John proposed, not on bended knee, but amid midway lights, tilt-a-whirl whirring nostalgic. Alex, laughing through nerves, said yes, ring glinting simple silver. Wedding was Harlan style. Backyard affair, hay bales for seats, Becca's potato salad, Dad officiating with a borrowed minister's stole. By the power vested, and a father's say-so. Vows echoed Joshua's spirit, John's. I choose you. Every shadowed day. Alex's, I'll walk the light with you. Dance floor under string lights. Tom spinning Lena. Eli now 18. College-bound, cheering with a rainbow lay. Even Joshua's mom danced. Yet humanism's core is imperfection. Months in. Doubts nipped. Alex's job offer in Columbus. A step toward city dreams. Not leaving you, he promised. But growth means movement. Echo of Joshua. The pull. John panicked. Nights pacing. What if history repeats? Therapy unpacked it. Sessions with a counselor who specialized in queer grief. Unpacking betrayal's baggage. Joshua's choices weren't yours to fix, she said. Alex's are shared. They compromised. Weekends in Columbus. John's remote consulting gigs bridging gaps. Balance, not stasis. Tragedy threaded in subtly. A call from Ricky, sober now, seeking amends. I'm writing my story, he said over diner coffee. Josh inspired that, facing the mess. No romance, just closure. Shared laughs over old haunts. A toast to the flawed. John left lighter, seeing betrayal as mosaic piece, not shatter. Years wove forward. John and Alex adopted a rescue mutt, Buster, who chased fireflies like Joshua once did. The cottage expanded, a studio for Alex's art, shelves groaning with John's books, sequel out, echoes unsilenced. Family swelled. Nieces and nephews tumbling through holidays. Dad, grayer, softer, reading bedtime stories with a queer twist. Eli returned summers, interning at the garage, out and fierce, John's quiet pride. One crisp October, they scattered Joshua's ashes, delayed by legal fuss, at Hocking Hills, Boulder witness. Wind whispered through oaks as John spoke. You were my first fire. Alex is the hearth. Alex squeezed his hand. Silent solidarity. Back home. Bonfire crackled. Friends toasting. To loves that linger. Stars wheeled overhead. Indifferent and eternal. John, at 35, looked back without regret. Silence had been his cage. Speaking, his key. Love, a spectrum, Joshua's blaze, Alex's glow, self-steady flame. In Maplewood's heartland hum, he found grace. Not erasure, but integration. Human. The end, open book, pages turning. But for now, in the porch swings creak, with Alex's head on his shoulder and Buster snoring at feet, John whispered thanks to storms past, skies clear. Love revealed, at last, in fullness. Epilogue whispers in the margins. But stories like John's demand no tidy bow, only the raw weave of continuance. 5 years on, the garage thrives under John's stewardship. Dad retired to fishing and PFLAG potlucks. His once ironclad Leviticus softened to love thy neighbor. Really mean it. Tom's got a buy flag pin on his trucker cap. Mike's kid asks Uncle John about boys who love boys with wide-eyed curiosity. Answered in age-soft truths. Maplewood pulses with quiet revolutions. The diner's Pride Pie Special. Library story hours featuring, and Tango Makes 3. Teens like Eli, now a barista poet, mentoring the next wave. Rust Heart spawns a franchise. Sequels chasing Joshua's outlaws across neon nights. John's consultant credit a footnote that funds scholarships for queer youth. He and Alex foster a teen runaway. Jamie, 17. Families chosen, John says, echoing Joshua's Underground Railroad ethos. Jamie blooms. High school graduation marked by hugs and homemade cake. His thank you, a tattoo of intertwined J's, for all the Johns who've anchored him. Betrayal's ghost? It visits rarely, a chill on windy eves. Ricky publishes his memoir, Distractions, a confessional on fleeting fixes, dedicating a chapter to Joshua, the one who got away, but taught me stayings. They meet once more, at a book signing in Akron, awkward handshakes evolving to beers and belly laughs. We were all just kids playing grown-up, Ricky toasts. John nods. The wound a scar, not open sore. Climax's afterglow. Alex's gallery show in Columbus. John's words framing canvases. Love as landscape. Critics rave. Collectors bid. Backstage. Champagne fizzing. We built this, he murmurs. From your embers. John smiles. Tasting future. Perhaps a house in the hills. Kids of their own. Stories stacked like cordwood. One dawn. Routine sacred. John wakes to birdsong. Alex's arm heavy across his waist. Buster whines for walkies. Coffee brews. Dark and bold. Porch swing calls. Journal open to a blank page. He pens, today. Grace in the ordinary. Love's quiet roar. Joshua's echo lingers. Not haunting, but harmonious, a verse in the song. Humanism's gift. No villains. Filling with light. John's silence shattered at that podium. Shards reassembled into prism. Through it, rainbows refract. Family mended. Community stirred. Self whole. He speaks now at workshops, weddings, wakes, voice steady, story shared. Love, he tells crowds, eyes crinkling like Alex's, isn't hidden treasure. It's the map you draw together, detours and all, in Maplewood's embrace, cornfields swaying, diner neon buzzing, John Harlan lives unburdened. The silent one? Myth. He's the speaker, the lover, the light bearer. And in the heartland hush, that's victory enough.